The Game Boy Advance, released in 2001, sold over 80 million units. That's quite impressive. It also maintained backward compatibility for Game Boy, as well as being able to play the Game Boy Advance games. So if you want to play the old classics, you can do that, or you can play the new ones over the hedge. Sure, why not? Cool. Although, if you keep it old school, it looks a little bit weird. But hey, it's Pokemon Blue, so their opinion is invalid. The Advance is also a hacker's dream, so you can actually view the screen when it's dark. Although unfortunately, if you modify it, RIP the batteries, because they will try their hardest, but it's only 2 AA's, which don't last long. Officially, the battery life for this was 15 hours, although that was a lie. This sold so well that just 2 years later, Nintendo would release the Game Boy Advance SP, which I don't have. I'm sorry. It was a little flippy thing, which in the noughties was kind of a big deal. And then a couple of years after the Game Boy Advance SP, Nintendo thought this, but smaller. Cause this just wasn't small enough, apparently. I also don't have the Micro, so imagine this, but smaller. The Game Boy Advance was an instant hit, and on release already had 25 games available, at least in Japan. Here in Europe we only had about 15 of them, but you know, they were fine. If you have a GameCube, you can also connect this to your GameCube and play some games via this little doofer. Superseding the Game Boy Color, which was already a massive step up compared to the original Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance continued to improve basically everything, with its smashing 16.8 MHz of power. Look, in 2001 that's quite a lot, you know. Several years later, followed up with the Nintendo DS, which smashed records globally and basically became pop culture. Although we've already covered the Nintendo DS in another short, the link is in the description below. So enough about the DS, and back to the Advance. Your library of Game Boy Advance games was also compatible with the Nintendo DS, because a long time ago, Nintendo was good, actually. I'm just as surprised as you. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment or subscribe, and bye bye for now.